Skyharbor, Sunshine Dust. The band's third studio album, this probably being the first without Daniel Tompkins. Once former, now back in Tesseract, as I've already alluded to this band before in my Tesseract review. This band, even now more so than before, primarily as a whole, is even though I'm told it's Israeli, but apparently they're Indian American band, technically. And a lot of their sound is, as evident, is somewhat similar towards that of Tesseract, hence why Daniel Tompkins was a good fit. And believe it or not, with the first album, Blinding White Noise, I want to say, they also had Marty freaking Friedman. For those of you who are fans of Megadeth, definitely know who the heck I'm talking about. My parents would have almost known if I hadn't looked at it, or at least found out if they went to that concert they were thinking of going to randomly, and before I said what stuff was, and then said forget it, because they're country bumpkins, and you can't always please those, can you? I kind of understand that a little bit. Fuck bro country. It's not. No. Anyway, as far as Skyharbor is concerned, with this third album, they definitely needed to do something to allow themselves to stand out a little more than the previous records. I kind of understood why, because given that some of the members were separated, they couldn't all work together as a full band as a whole in studio, because not every member was kind of from around the same place at the time, given Daniel Tompkins, I guess, is technically UK or something. Most of the other members of the band are from Israeli, but I guess they're somehow American citizens, so I guess that's what, or from India. Why do I say that? Because my sources are screwed up with that one. But overall, as far as this album is concerned, comparison to Tesseract, and I had to sit on this one for a while, plus I had to make sure I could catch up with everything else that I was doing. As far as this album, at least by first listen, which is why I had to wait it out a while so I knew for sure, because I was willing to give this album the year. So I had to wait this one out a little bit, because I didn't want to jump the gun with this one. Because I could see in some way some people might not have thought that with this, and I definitely knew there was no way with the Tremonti record, but a lot of people are definitely with the Judas Priest. But as far as this is concerned, I even like this album. I know I like this album more so than Tesseract's recent outing. And I guess I could spoil something already. I definitely like this way more than some recent prog outings, especially one that just recently came out beforehand. Circles, last one. I don't think it's the last album, but I mean it's okay, but yeah, Lucas, if you're watching this, yeah, you're not wrong. In comparison to Tesseract and Skyharbor, this pales, and this album is more so an example of that, because in fact, I kind of like this album better than the Era record. Yeah, and even at its low points, it still feels like a good high point as well, somehow. And there's at least maybe there's an opening with Signal, which is not bad. It has a little vocals, but can't really make out much, but it serves its purpose, especially going into, I believe, the first single that was off this album, Dim. And from what I'm told, most of these tracks on here, including the final track and final and title track of the album, Sunshine Dust, and you could tell even from the sound that a lot of this does leave off from the last record. In fact, a lot of these songs were kind of leftovers from the last record, Sunshine Dust being one of them. But I guess they kind of... And I'm not going to say it's necessarily the highlight on the record, but it's... In fact, I find, to a degree, far more Dim, Descent, Ugly Heart. Menace is definitely the heavier song on the record for sure. Dim and Out of Time are definitely a good... despite Signal, if we're talking actual tracks, song-wise, Dim and Out of Time serve as a great 1-2 punch. Synthetic Hands is nice. Definitely show off a little more heavier side. Blind Side is fine. Maybe a little on the weaker side. Disengage and Evacuate is not nice. It seems that might be kind of a low point, but it still doesn't stop from trying to keep you engaged. The sound, it still keeps you interested. Ethos, and I think to the point where by Ethos and Ugly Heart, I feel like with this band, as well as Tesseract, compared to most genty bands that are somehow usually lumped in with progressive metalcore, this one seems to be lumped more closer to have a very, like with Polaris, for example, for Tesseract, and even, why am I blanking on the second record? Altered State. There's definitely a more alternative metal-ish vibe, while still maintaining far more alt metal-ish vibe, while maintaining some more traditional and some slight brutal prog stuff, or some of the more ambient stuff that most so-called gent and of course progressive metalcore bands seem to be lumped into now. And this one's definitely one of the better, more it's definitely more old metal in the sense that it's much more presentable and easier to digest as opposed to most other bands that have been considered gent or metal, or even progressive metalcore for that matter. Maybe even more so than Tesseract, but in a good way. And lyrically, they do have some nice. It's definitely its own ironic enough ethos to it. There's a theme sort of in its own right in terms of some sort of mental spiritual kind of thing that's honestly harder for me to truly properly explain, or the fact that I just haven't found the proper sources to allow me to do that. But all I can say is that it all seems to flow and work together. And once you, even more so sonically, even lyrically too, there's something at moments, there's some nice little vocal hooks. There's definitely a lot of good hooks here and there. More so vocally than I guess sonically, which I think is something definitely shared with Tesseract. Though they do have some nice sonic moments here and there that definitely blend in and add to those vocal hooks. Even the harmonies between, I believe it's with now seeing I believe Eric Emery's main vocals, and some of the stuff that I guess either Deshavel, one of the guitarists, I think it's either Keshav or Devesh. Like I said, they're Indian band, so I'm not to be confused with what most people here in the States refer to as Indians. That's Native American. That's the only time political correctness is okay. So you don't confuse that. But, yes, as far as I'm concerned, drums do pop out. I think a lot of the more ambient guitars, softer moments, and some of the heavier moments do come out pretty good. Menace is definitely, I think, on the more heavier side of that. Temptress is definitely not bad. But, as far as I'm concerned, the moments that I do kind of gravitate more towards have been Dim, Out of Time, Ethos, and Ugly Heart. Or at least those are like more payoff in comparison to some other tracks. But as far as I'm concerned, they're somehow still good and have their nice little hooks and moments to still do what it needs to do to keep you engaged, and is definitely of those genty, or even to the extent of progressive metalcore, but not quite that, more lenient towards, like, say, those ideas, but more on the alternative metal side of it, I guess, that Tesseract seems to kind of go more towards ever since Altered State. That's the kind of thing happening here. Even more so like what happened with Guiding Light, which was pretty good too. Even though I did, but it seems there are some elements of the first album in terms of like some lead work here and there. Even some in Ugly Heart, for example, that's definitely there. I wouldn't say it's on the level of Marty Friedman, but type of shreddiness. But it's definitely lead work that definitely, more so in my opinion, represents something that comes to mind periphery. More so. So I guess this seems to be the one that not only caters to Tesseract fans, like they usually seem to be able to do, but it also seems like it might cater to some more diehard periphery fans. And by more diehard, people who aren't so up the butt of the first album, which I don't fully understand. Second, I do, to a degree, but I still think they've actually managed to improve with their sound even through that, likes of Juggernaut and them. But regardless of that. But as far as this is concerned, despite my ramblings and all this stuff, I almost wanted to say Masterclass. And it's possible that they have even went as far as themselves to say, this is the best album they have done. I'm not even sure I will go that far, but I'm not going to sit here and say this album isn't damn good, if not possibly great, in its own right. For what it is. And, as far as I'm concerned, this album fucking rocks. There's nothing that doesn't want to keep me engaged. I don't know if I can say, it's probably definitely sure, I'll definitely say it'll make top 10 for sure, but I cannot say it's the best of the year right now, because there's some other albums that are starting to kind of come into contention here and there. And, man, let's say I've been on a little bit of a prog kick, and in fact, there's an album request that isn't, that I will get to, though it somehow was in the metal section, but I don't know why. Because it's not metal. It's post-hardcore. But anyway, for that band. But as far as this Skyharbor Suicide Dust, definitely worth checking out. In fact, all their stuff is like that of Tesseract, as far as I'm concerned, is worth checking out. But I would say this album over the new Tesseract, Sonder, definitely, yes. Get this album over the new Tesseract. This one definitely hits those certain notes, especially if you liked the past two albums far more than the first or this current one. I'd say definitely this is definitely going to give you some of those sort of brighter tones and maybe even some more interesting lead work in that sense, certain niche, in certain specific sense that you like getting out of periphery that maybe you don't exactly get out of Tesseract. There's some of that there. I feel like this finds that perfect balance for you. And for any of you prog fans or just metal fans who need something that's against the grain of the whole true cult bullshit. So we can all agree that you need something past that says fuck that shit. So, and this definitely does that. So yeah, definitely a massively high recommendation for me. And Skyharbor Sunshine Dust, what did you guys think of it? You comment below, let me know, and let's just keep rocking. One more thing, Lucas LeCompte, if you're watching, what? I guess from your Circles review, you don't really care much for Skyharbor, or is that why you didn't bother to review this album yet, or care to? I don't know, because I'm telling you, I'd say if you didn't care for the Circles record, I feel like you'll get something more out of this one for sure. So definitely check it out, dude. And yeah, take care, y'all.